Geshe Nagarjuna Zobe Sangere Bala Shazo Devaresha Vanjade Jamba Jivande Kalo Jiva Lana Meva Tada Meva Sanje Jumde Beja Washaja Sazeno Chudu Jaso Shiva Demba Jumde de Shinshiva Rajumba Yando Zobe Sangere Bala Shazo Demba Devaresha Jamba Jivande Kalo Jiva Lana Tada Menanje Demba Sanje Jumde Beja Shaja Tubala Sazeno Chudu Jaso Demba Jumden de Shinshiva Rajumba Yando Zobe Sangere Bala Shazo Demba Devaresha Jiden Jamba Jivande Kalo Jiva Lana Meva Lada Menanje Sanje Jumden de Beja Washaja Tubala Shazo Chuda Jazu Shea Kanze Kanye Zowa Sajen Den Kumban Demba Mane Jiden Den Teze Kyaba Jona Sa Selo Namda Kuma Ishijazo Seja Numbo da Chaban Jiden Sumna Gombo Chunye Jona Sa Zeno Senjon Demba Jimeta Sendo Dawa Jona Sa Zeno Judeja da Seba Suma Nyame Tenjen Jona Sa Zeno Gombo Tuji Jena Tamje Jimeta Sonam Yenden Jazo Jendi Shinsha La Sa Tabian de Shachawan Junge Venges on the Judu to the Jojo Shinju Jona Sa Zeno Jene Jebel Lava Shinga Tamba Yenden Gendela Yacha Zeno Diju the Wajia Misha Puson Soba Rangi Simne Tene Sanje Demba Yukarma Rima Jumase Churu Melam Loda Jenda Bondishan Tetarata Sonam Dia Kubandam Nejin Date and Gada Nanda Shiva Lapju Sibe Sonin to one show.
To the teacher, the blessed one, the one whom you, the full destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Suralan, no over, supreme light of ages to be attained, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the Satya from the Shakya clan, and prostrate make offerings and hope for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, so that no other one, supreme light of ages to be gained, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the Satya from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no other word, supreme guide of beings to be attained, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the Satya from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When supreme among humans, your one understood, you paced out 7 stars and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With the pure body's form extremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, flame that blazes in the 3 worlds, bringing the blessed to you I prostrate. With the spring signs traced like sparkless moon, color and gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are above, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one called justice I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path of liberation, the holy fear qualified for realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community attending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star in the eyes of flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream of flash of lightning or cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain miracle power seen, subdue the four worlds, and be delivered from the ocean of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Chana Zoje Chana Chanju Pato Tane Jazu Dagi Jazoje Bezonanje Dola Penche Sanje Chana Zoje Chana Chanju Pato Tane Jazu Dagi Jazoje Bezonanje Dola Penche Sanje Chana Zoje Chana Chanju Pato Tane Jazu Dagi Jazoje Bezonanje Dola Penche Sanje Chana Zoje Chana Chanju Pato Tane Jazu Dagi Jazoje Bezonanje Dola Penche Sanje Chana
I go for refuge and feel enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing keeping and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and feel enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing keeping and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge and feel enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing keeping and other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Kete Pumba Dayana, Jadan Jubashino Jira, Kete Pumba Namnesia, Pumbe Sinim, Danya Yuba Mayana, Davi Yuba, Dada the Vishivation, Manjaman Zimaka, Yuba Mayande, Manjaman Zimaka, come to Tonga. Now the children yet alone, Dada the Williams and Yawandi, the Zebana Jawas, let on your Mosebata, let on your Monam, the Dr. Joban, Tomani, Dawajan, the Major, Sanjan, the Dada, the Mega Jabashaman over there, Jeju, the Majaba, the Magaba, Chinin, Tamja Yanda, 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 Mayini, Yanda, Mimi, Yanda, Tenesan, Shenejime Shiva, no Joban. Namdo Tademea Dene Kala Dena Kanjoma, Dene Rejetimea, Dele Shamba, Sanji Ganam, Demba de Zuba, Jomania Tademea, Chabama, Zozanja Namajo, Yedena, Sevena, Razanji, Demba Mela Radu, Dada Shua, Sheva, Jogi, Kangiam, what did you know, woman, Yishinia Messenger, Impermanent, chance. So, yeah.
I have a question about the last week. This stanza number 6, on this Loizzo's translation, it says of the two, existence and nirvana. And the Jinpa's translation is the samsara and nirvana. So in Tibetan, which one is correct?
Number 6. Number 6 is Sibatan and Yangantis. Sibatan. I think, yeah, Siba is the samsara. Samsara and the, nirvana. As a two, there is no two as Siba, how's that? Samsara and nirvana. So yeah, so he translated existence, right?
Yes.
Sebe Siba. I think that's the word, some kind of word play. We call attachment as a sepa. Sepa. Sepa, what is the outcome of, what is the outcome of the attachment is samsara, right? So they use the name in Tibetan, they maybe translated it maybe, what is the outcome of Sepa is what is possible exist.
So out of a teaching, something.
Out of, yeah, something exists. So that's called Siba. Otherwise, there's not much meaning. The meaning itself, like Siba means possible, or something exists. You know. So the meaning of the Siba in understanding, you know, is the samsara. So in India, there's a lot of, you know, many times they use when this, you know, what call professional, when they make speech, they try to always use the rhythms, you know, sipa, like that. This is why, and it's still correct to use existence. You know, what is exist out of attachment is the samsara. Rhythm or rhyming, yeah. Sipa. The two existent in nirvanas, neither is known to exist. Just before the stanzas number 5 says, those who do not see the reality presume duality with single existence in nirvana. Those who do see the reality do not presume either second existence or the nirvana. And then 6 goes, two of, you know, of two, the two of them, the samsara and nirvanas, is not really for the Arya, the noble being, they don't really see them as two different things. It's like a person who is just awake, don't see in him the one who is awake and one who has been sleeping, right, as a two different person. So, and then what is, if the nirvanas, the one who is awake from ignorance, don't see, you know, himself in a state of, you know, ignorant, is not seeing the two different things. And then what is the nirvana? And then the stanzas of 6, the second line of this, full understanding of existence is called nirvana. So the understanding the samsara totally is nirvana. So what this means is there's a two kind of, you know, layers. One layers, what is nirvana is seeing nothing arises intrinsically, you know, and perfectly understood, and your mind is settled into it. You know, that is the one of how you see the nirvana. So, and the second, the layer of that is one who gained confidence. Now there is no longer coming of any birth in samsara. So that is nirvana too, right? So it's one meaning because he sees everything is, you know, intrinsically absence, even the arising of samsara, arising of the new rebirth. There is no intrinsically. So mind convincingly settle, abide in that emptiness is nirvana, right? That is nirvana. So nirvana transcends, it means you transcend before you are in that ignorant. So you are you are covered up by the ignorance. You see there's so many things happening everything that's happening, changes are intrinsically. Now you gain you gain this wisdom that understands perfectly that nothing arises intrinsically, and not just intellectually. You directly experience. Your mind is inseparable from that truth. So you are transcends from ignorance, yeah. And then, and why it's called liberation. Liberation means now he gained confidence. He was for sure there is no longer coming of any birth in samsara. So the liberation in transcends. So I think this is why many times they use different words, nirvana, moksha, so in Tibetan we call transcends is nyangelandeva. And then another word is tarpa, nyangelandeva and tarpas. So now here kind of saying that nirvana is that nirvana that you experience is by depending upon, what makes you see the nirvana, how the individual who has attained the liberations, how he sees the nirvana. So nirvana means he sees the nirvana just because he was caught up in ignorance before. Now he feels liberated from that. This is why he experienced the nirvana. So there is no independent nirvana to experience. Like usually we say the analyzing of the space, Nagarjuna's chapter 5, space is absence of obstructive phenomena. The space to experience, they're relying upon experience of the obstructive. If you don't have any experience of the obstructive, you cannot see the space. So you may be in the space where you are not going to, experience the space, right? So the experience of the space is because you experience obstructive phenomena. Now that obstructive nature is absence in here, so you experience space. So space do not exist independent from the obstructive nature. So similarly, being ignorant is the condition. It is the basis for individual. Once free from ignorance, he sees the transcendence. He sees the nirvana. So now, saying the nirvana and samsara is not apple and orange. It's not like two location or two place. Right? So the fully understanding of the existence is called nirvana. Siba yonzu sheba ni nyangendeji shawa juice. Yeah, maybe there's a. So Nagarjuna stated the full understanding of existence is called nirvana. Such full understanding does not perceive any real absence of intrinsically objective creation of existence. As the reality of existence is just as the nature of the complete eradication of all sign, it is called nirvana. So now, particularly in the front of the person who is experiencing the nirvana, so in what nature they see their transcendence, then says that total pacification of the all mental construct is shunned. It is all dismantled, and they see total space, pure space in there. So this is how they see the nirvana. So the eradication of all signs, it is called nirvana. In accordance with the conventional truth, and must be understood as lacking any intrinsically objective status whatsoever, just as in the traditional view, one cannot present impermanence whose insubstantial natures lacks the status as intrinsically objectivity established. So any kind of is not like something that the final.
What page are you?
Yeah, 147. Stanza 6. Stanza numbers. Yeah.
Below that.
Okay, thank you.
So, so one cannot present impermanence whose insubstantial nature lacks the status intrinsically objectively established without referring to the impermanent things. Just so it is taught. The wise also cannot conceive of any whatsoever called nirvana that has no intrinsically, that has an intrinsically reality status. Intrinsically real status, without referring to the conventional things, which are like magicianal illusions. So as I mentioned earlier, to see the space, first you have to experience obstructive nature, and then the obstructive nature which is you've been experiencing is now it is lacking here. So therefore you see, oh, there's the space. Like a cow, when they go closer to the cliff, they say, oh, there's in the space. So they move from the cow can see, because they have been working on the obstructive nature, and there's somewhere there's a space which is lacking the obstructive natures. They just turn away from that. So in this way, the samsara should be like that. It is not like a final body limb, and then it just before it's dead, and then it ceases to exist and discontinues. It is not like nirvana is not like that, right? It's not like a final body limb, and due to the exhaustion of the wick and oil, now there is no continuation of the light, right? So now here the Chandrakirti is kind of pointing that if someone who who views the nirvana is nothing, it's a discontinuation of the body and consciousness, that is not a nirvana. Someone is really viewing that nirvana means no body, no consciousness, no continuation of the consciousness in the body, and become non-existence is nirvana. So this is conventional things, which is like in magicianal illusions. So then that nirvana is relatively exist. So nirvana is relatively exists. For example, the death is, what makes death existing is life, right? When the life changes identity and become the death. So death exists just because there was a life, So is life that ends, cease to exist. Life that ceases to exist is the death. That existing is, because of the life had once exist, So then that death is not a non-existing because of the end of that life is the beginning of another life. So therefore it is not a non-existence. And also you can see, we say conditional suffering. The suffering is a conditional. Your mind is experiencing suffering inconditional. And what conditional your mind experience suffering? When the mind is with the condition of karma and afflictions. When the mind experience
freedom from the karma and the afflictive emotion, and the mind experiences liberation. So that is not a non-existence, right? So in condition, you're suffering, and eradicating the cause and the condition that causes the suffering to the mind is nirvana. Therefore, nirvana is not a non-existence, right? So
That view would be to fall in meditation.
yeah, so if that kind of nirvana is independent, non-existing, and there is total nihilism, and then this cannot be asserted to be an achievement, because it's just become nothing. And who will achieve? Who will experience that liberations? So I think this is what saying consciousness is still there. Consciousness with, consciousness bound with an attachment and karma is samsara. Consciousness, freedom from attachment and karma is a liberation, right? So there's nothing. Liberation does not mean you have no object to see, no sound to hear, no any taste or smell. Liberation is, liberation. Within the liberation, you can still see things, you can hear things, you can smell, you can taste, you can feel. In what sense you are liberated is now your mind is no longer, there is bondage of karma and afflictive emotions. That is liberation, right? So this is why I think, the conditional, we are experiencing some kind of suffering in condition. So the condition, that condition which causing the suffering, we are trying to apply the antidote and overcome that, abandon that. So then the mantra that says Nirodha Mahashamane Soha. Ye dharma hetu prabhava hetu teshin tatagado hevada teshincha nirodha. What he has taught also to end the cause and conditions, cause and condition which brings the suffering, nirodha, mahashamane. Before is the first line, it says ye dharma hetu prabhava. All phenomena, all conditioned things are changing due to cause and conditions. And then second line says, cause and conditions which brings the suffering to end, taught by the great Samadhi. So, hence the Nagarjuna stated, the naive imagine cessations as the annihilation of originated things. So naive imagine cessations as the annihilation of originated things, while the wise understand it as like a cessation of the magical illusions. This line is a little bit different, when you read Tutenjima's translation. Just as the cessation is imputed on the on the disintegrations of the arising entity. So too, the sublime one accept the cessation that is illusion-like. So this is almost like saying, Nagarjuna saying that just you see, as I mentioned earlier, the life and the death. So, like ordinary people sees the death, so lies, death is defined, defined through absence of that life. Similarly, and the wise, noble beings understands the nirvana is end of cyclic existence, right? End of cyclic existence. Like the death is not a non-existing, it still exists in a different form, a different it's a new kind of new appearance. So it's like illusion like existence, that death is still illusion like existence. Similarly, nirvana or the liberation is also existing magical illusions. So it's in the Tibetan, this is ngobo chungwa shiwa chidran gopan namdashis. So the cessation or the disintegrations, how the ordinary people perceived, how ordinary people perceive the cessation or the disintegrations, says in this, in the similar way, the noble Arya beings finds the nirvana is cessation or the disintegration of any conditional things, right? Like ordinary people sees the death is the cessation of life or disintegration of life, but still exist. So, Arya beings, the noble being, also sees nirvana is something still existing, but it's cessation of that samsara. It's not a non-existence, right? So naive imagine cessations. I think annihilation maybe is not annihilation. It's cessation of originated things. Annihilation means in the it's kind of jumping in too much conclusions. So it's a naive imagine cessation as the disintegration of the originated things, something that has born now no longer exists. That entity, which has ceased to exist. So still they don't see is a non-existence. But similarly, and Arya also sees the Arhat is something, the end of that cycle, cyclic life. Now that has ended, but still it exists. There is, because there is the experience, individual who experienced that nirvana, individual who experienced that freedom. Yes.
Ordinary beings see this disintegration as similar to annihilation.
Ordinaries is not the. There's two kind of ordinaries. So
This
one's crazy or an ordinary. So ordinary, normal people. Conventional, normal people. They don't really normal people. They don't really see is death is something end. Right? Even the religious, of course, the religious people. Many of the religious people, they still go to the cemetery, every year. So maybe there's something left, they think, right? So And some people who not believing in next life, and they kind of, some people think that, they bury their body and they put the tree on it, or the tree is good, that dead body is turning into that energy, turning into the tree. So something this is there's no total annihilations, right? Even the scientists who are not believing in this, some kind of molecules is still left in the space. There's some kind of residue there.
Yeah, the particles go back to the particles of your body goes where.
So who's not believing or religion or not religion, or believing in next life or no next life, so they always, it is very obvious that something residue is there, right? So just saying that, so it is still not total annihilations, not annihilations for the ordinary people. So likewise, nirvana is actually, it is the end of the samsara, but still it is not annihilations. It's not an end. And previously explained that the nirvana, what is nirvana means. How do you really understand the nirvana? And then say, nirvana means, so there's a, nirvana means, no more, no more birth in samsara, or end of birth in samsara. So this is the end of birth in nirvana. The samsara is that nirvana, but this should be known like, like space defined through the obstructive nature. Without obstructive natures, there's no way, nothing can define you, nothing can define the space to you. If you have no obstructive nature in your whole body, your existence is total free from obstructive natures, you don't see the space, right? You don't see the space. So similarly, when there is obstructive natures, and then end of that obstructive nature is the space. So there is the conditional, mind which is bound with the bondage of karma and afflictions, is the samsara. That end, the condition which binds the mind, its end is nirvana. So therefore, it is still not non-existence. It exists, and existing, the way it existing is similar, like samsara, illusion like existence. The both samsara and nirvana is illusionary existence. So then again, he kind of so again they're saying, this is also like ordinary people find the death. Ordinary people find, some kind of, you just like when you're eating, the end of that eating. When you're walking, the end of that walking. People find it ends here, but it's not a non-existence. When you get tired of working and then you stop working, that's end of that period. So that is still, you don't consider as non-existence. So nirvana should be considered like end of that conditional suffering. Is not the annihilation, or it is not a non-existence. So it is, existing in what? It is existing like magical illusions. Thus, since the impermanence of the created things is established, since impermanence of the created things, the conditioned things that we know, impermanence of the conditioned things is established only by that's becoming non-existence. It has no intrinsic objective status. So, yeah, when the paper burn, when the paper is burned, or fabrics burned, wood has burned, and turned into ashes or what's that? Coal. Charcoal, So ordinary people, so this is, then wood is no more there, So intrinsically objective, if it were to have the such status, it would be seen as an intrinsic reality, independent of any created things. The charcoal is not independent from the wood. You're right. The paper which has burned, turned into ashes, is not independent from it. You not become independent. Not independent means it's dependent. That is how you become that is because of that paper, because of that wood. So you are, that the charcoal is, to become the charcoal is depending on the wood. Similarly, the noble as well do not perceive anything whatsoever established in the intrinsically real way that can be called the cessations. So there is, and generally, there is no any disintegration which is intrinsically exist. Any disintegrations, any cessations is all dependable phenomena, dependent originations. Right? So dependent originated, so nothing, no disintegration is independent. For when to call cessations, for when analyzed with the wisdoms, that which is unproduced in any intrinsically real way and lacking its objectivities, like a magically fabricated elephant, is called nirvana. So it's kind of like one of the illusions, the magician, right? Magician creates the elephant, right? Magical illusions, elephant, and then they see elephant turn into horses. So the both are illusions when this ended and that happened. So samsara and nirvana is both illusion like existence. This illusion ended and next happened. So next illusion is, is not independent from the previous illusion. Nirvana. Furthermore, since the nirvana established in dependence on that life cycle, which is, glows as like a magician illusions, it is established as an impermanence by worldly conventions. It is now what you can say, if this is not annihilation, wood turning into charcoal is not annihilation. What do you call it? It is impermanent. It changed. That is the change. The wood changed to charcoal. Milk changed to yogurt. Seed changed to sprout. So there is nothing become non-existence. So thereby the so-called life, cyclic life, and transcend nirvana. So that's why cyclic life and transcend nirvana. So you are living under the condition of karma and afflictions. Now you live again free from karma and afflictions. So there is no annihilation. Right? So both lack intrinsically objective status. Therefore, through the knowledge of the reality of things, by just that lack of objective perceptions should be recognized without a doubt as nirvana. Now Chandrakirti emphasizing in the commentaries, he's emphasizing that nirvana is not something non-existing. Nirvana is not annihilation. Nirvana is not a dissipation. Nirvana is not a discontinuation. And what is it? Nirvana is one of the change from the cyclic life. It's a big change. So it's like a sick patient and a cured. It's not a, there is disintegration, but it's not annihilation. It is the change.
This is very extremely difficult for me to understand, because generally, the causal chain just carries forward. It doesn't stop. It continues. Whatever causes and conditions exist, new causes and conditions exist all the time. And yet, when we talk about nirvana, there still, to me, is some kind of sense of it doesn't exist, it does not exist, and yet there's causes and conditions where now, on some level, it seems it's still experienced, but without grasping. And it seems it's spoken of as when it's realized, there's no going back from it. In other words, everything else, there were new causes and conditions that changed whatever you were talking about, like milk became butter, and then eventually butter is not butter. It's something will cause it to decay, will cause its state to change. But it seems once one experiences nirvana, there's no longer any change. It's almost like it was never there, it was never not there, but now it's realized, and there's no new conditions that could cause one to slip out of nirvana, for example, or for nirvana to become something else. It starts to sound to me like it wasn't permanent, but now it's permanent. It's there's so much wordplay here. It didn't exist, it did not exist, and yet it's realized. And there's no going back from it. It sounds like, it wasn't permanent before, but it's permanent now. It seems like this is full of contradictions that are beyond the possibility of understanding it. And if you don't understand it, it's almost futile to talk about it. That's all I want to say.
That's great. You said well. This is how you say it. Which means it's full of shit. So
No, I'm not going to let you get away with that. That's an easy way out. To say, that's just dismissive. We're not talking about, if you say something's full of shit, it's just like saying, I don't want to talk about it. There's no contradictions here. There's no linguistic inadequacy. There are contradictions. There's contradictions all over the place. I feel like your answer is just dismissive, like, I don't want to talk about it.
So, you want to wear a boxing glove?
No, I don't think that's
that's the only option for you.
I don't think that's a genuine response. I mean, I have to say it directly. I don't think that's a genuine response.
Okay. So stanzas number 8. If cessation happened through the annihilations, not by fully understanding the creation, who would be there to experience it? How could there be such destroyed? So if cessation happened through the annihilations, cessation is something that is, for example, this whole samsara is the conditional suffering, means by nature it is suffering. Without having it to be end, there is no nirvana. It's a hypothetical. If this whole, the conditional, your mind and the bodies are in the conditional suffering. So the conditional suffering does not mean you are temporarily in the conditional suffering. By nature, you are suffering. So in order to find the liberation, you have to end all of this nature. So that is Chandrakirti's commentary. He's saying, so if someone thinks that nirvana is annihilation, it's become, you are suffering because you are existing, so you have to, erase your existing of yourself is nirvana. So that is as a total annihilation, because we have said conditional suffering. You are suffering not by nature. By nature, you are not suffering. By nature, you are not confused. By nature, you are not ignorance. You are not knowing the reality, therefore you are ignorant. You have the ignorance. You can't free from ignorance. So you being free from ignorance is, we are trying to explain, this is what is the achievement. It is not talking about totally end something and become something else. So nirvana is not like that. Nirvana is that in ordinary language, it is just a change. So from the ignorant states to non-ignorant or fully awakened states. So that is burning the wood and turn into charcoal, and still wood did not dissipate it, right? Wood that you are burning is not going to turn into non-existing or dissipation, because the charcoal remains. So even the ordinary level, we understand that this whole we call the wood is no longer there because it's turned into. So nirvana here is not annihilation, it is change. It's, with with you are existing with ignorance and karma, and now you exist, in the new, you exist without, under the force of karma and afflictive emotions. It's change. Milk to the yogurt is change. And, samsaric life to the liberated life is a change. It's not a non-existing. You are not cutting any continuation of body and consciousness. Right. If the nirvana is end of your body, end of discontinuation, and right now to feel liberated or to feel a little bit closer to liberation, you may see some of the bodies fall down, or some of this. Now I'm a little bit lighter. my all the meats and flesh fall down. Oh, they're liberating, and then the whole body is gone, and you are totally liberated. Right? So it is nirvana in ordinary perceptions, saying that it's just a change. Nirvana is just a change.
Yes, I just wanted to ask. Nirvana is its own continuation, right? It's constantly changing.
Huh?
Nirvana is constantly changing too, right? It's not just permanent.
Now, as I mentioned, nirvana is the very nature of the nirvana, and then one who attained nirvana. So there's a conceptually characters, the nature itself, and who has this nature. Right. So the person is always impermanent. The nature of the nirvana is end of the birth in the second existence. And how you see and what nature you see the nirvana. Then says, you see the nirvana, you experience the nirvana in emptiness. Right. So we are not talking about the one kind of, so when there is any kind of the any kind of the even the in ordinary in the conventional there's a rankings, and the rank itself, what is the nature of it, how much the quality in there, when this person who gained that and what this person become, right? So the rank and the one who has, who gained this rank, who gained this status. So the person and the rank is actually it's two different things. So impermanence, you can say the person who is liberated is impermanent. The very nature of the nirvana, where you see nirvana, is just emptiness. That is this. This is in this emptiness you find nirvana, you find freedom, you find liberated. And then you say, what is that liberation? The person was caught in samsara, he is no longer caught by that samsaric condition. And then that is not a nirvana itself. Right? This is kind of, every meaning, in the conventional, So, if you find this is just a word play, and because there is the word play, identified the person and whose nirvana and how he being attained nirvana, because the word is constructing different meaning, right? Yes, is the word has played, and now we let the word play to you. That is the problem. The word has the capable of constructing is the quality of the word. What has played to you, confused you, is your problem. Right? It's not the problem of the word. Now say, what is confusing me? So from now on, I'm not going to say a word. Right? So everything's whole meaning, nation, country, classes, right wing, left wing. There's word play. The word had constructed, because people deliberately, for a purpose, they create some characters, and people buy it. Right? Like within the Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism, we say, oh, Geluk, Satya, Nyingma. The word is constructed. In the Buddha Shakyamuni teaching, which part was the Geluk's teaching, which part is Satya? There's nothing. But when the Kagyu says, can you teach the Nagarjuna? They hold this book. And Satya, Nyingma, whoever is this, they have to explain that. Now when he explained, and he said, Arya, I'm a Geluk, so I'm going to explain this according to Lama Tsongkhapa. And people go, oh, he's teaching Geluk tradition. So if one Kagyu mind comes, oh, I'm explaining this Nagarjuna teaching according to my Lama. So then it's become Kagyu. So the many lineage you have is the word has played to you. And you are emotionally attached to the one lineage, and you are emotionally detached another lineage, which is both lineage has the same meaning. You are angry with actually one meaning. Right. So we are trying to, the samsara, cyclic existence, samsara, even the samsara, cyclic, korva, samsara, korva, cyclic, it's just wordplay. There is no such thing. Have you ever seen your body is cycling again and again? There is no. Is your eye conscious cycling again and again? No.
It is a metaphor.
Yeah, it's just metaphor. It's just word has constructed this. A continuity is the word played. Anything that ceases to exist no longer going to reappear. But there's the continuations. The continuations, how do you really understand, anything that has ceased to exist, the very thing is not going to reappear, but there is continuations. And then the word continuations gives you the pictures, something repeating. That is the wrong picture, but you accept that. And the word does not come to you, say, I'm sorry, I confused you, so I'm going to fix it. No, word has no compassion to you. No thought, no word has compassion to you. So you have to understand the meaning. So this is now the here what we're doing is we're trying to prevent the misunderstanding of nirvana. So nirvana is not something annihilations, or the nirvana is not something discontinuation of the consciousness in the body. So nirvana is not talking about end of existing of something. So nirvana is not the end of existing of something, or discontinuation of something. Nirvana is not discontinuation of something. What is nirvana? Then it says, in ordinary knowledge, like wood burn and turn into charcoals, from the milk to the yogurt. So nirvana is also, you are right now in the condition, under the condition of karma afflictive emotions, that change to the young, and then another yourself that is no longer under the force of karma and afflictions. That is nirvana, right? So nirvana, I think this is how you attain nirvana. And then say, and how do you see the mind when you experience the nirvana? What it look like? There's nothing to be looked like. It is just absence of intrinsic existence. You see, you experience the nirvana in total pacification of the mental construct, right? And so is this how you attain nirvana? We say yes. So when you see the total pacification of the mental construct, and your mind is so convincingly abide or settle into that nature, right? There's a you and your mind is settling in that empty of nature. Then says, oh, you and your mind and your object is three different things. So again, that three is what has played to you. When you experience there is no you apart from that emptiness, there is no your attainment apart from that emptiness. So the word has to create many characters, many entities, in order for you to understand the exact meaning. So this is why saying that if cessation happened through the annihilations, if, hypothetical, not by fully understanding the creations, Kyawa means. So this now is a consequence, saying, yes, the cessation, if the cessation happened through the annihilations, something that you don't like is a condition of suffering by annihilating that existing, that nature, and you attain nirvana, then, which means you don't need the knowledge, you don't need the wisdom to realize the ultimate truth. So the wisdom do not, physically destroy anything. If cessation happened through annihilations, not by fully understanding the creations. Now you also read, don't let the word play to you, and then says, and what is the affirmative, the kind of point is, the cessation is only, happen through fully understanding the creations. So cessation, nirvana is through fully understanding the samsara or cyclic existence. So if not, then nirvana is not attained through the wisdom. Nirvana is happen, by destroying the existence of yourself. So they carefully, you have to, understand from many angles. So you don't drive only one-way drive. You have both sides you have to see. If cessation is the hypothetical, if cessation happened through annihilations, so which means cessation is happen if through, discontinuation of something, then what you do? Are you going to do the meditation? No. Your mind is not going to destroy that discontinuations. So, and so then is it, in the same way, if someone thinks that nirvana is, non-existing of something, or dissipation of something, discontinuation of something, then you don't need the wisdom realizing emptiness. So you have to, if there is nirvana is like that, and then when you die, you have to tell someone, if there is the remaining of my body, please destroy it. It will come again. So you just burn 1,000 times, turn it ashes, and then you just grind it in a powder and just throw in space, everywhere. So I may not come back. So for that, you don't need the wisdom. You don't need, understand the reality. So who would be there to experience? Then says, if this annihilation, and who's going to experience that annihilation? If this is a nirvana. And how could there be such a destruction? How could there be the cessation of a cause of suffering? How could there be even the space? The space, space is introduced or identified through the obstructive nature. When everything is there is a nothing, and how can you say this is the destruction of afflictive emotion? So you think that the non-creation of suffering, when all things are no longer perceived, like vanish, the magical creations, is not nirvana, but rather that nirvana is the subsequent non-creation of anything whatsoever. Once such things as a form and so on no longer possess substantial intrinsic identities, substantial natures, causes, the conditions and actions and delusions, if that were to be the case, then nirvana would occur through the process of serving continuum by destroying an intrinsic natural identity of something. So you see now, so you think that non-creation of suffering, I think here nirvana is, so nirvana that you experience in emptiness, nirvana, the taste of the nirvana is through the emptiness. And all things are no longer perceived. So then nirvana, when the consciousness of the wisdom that experience the taste, having taste of the nirvana is in emptiness. There is, in the emptiness, from the point of view of the emptiness, there's no conventional reality. There's nothing to perceive. There's nothing to know. So like vanish magical creations. So there is many things played in before you, like an elephant and the horses, the magical illusions, when everything is just disappears in thin air. And this is how the arhat, who is directly experienced the nirvana, in the state of nirvana, what they see is there's nothing to be, conceived, nothing to imagine. So if this is not a nirvana, it's not a nirvana, but rather nirvana is subsequent non-creation of anything whatsoever. If this is, you are not knowing this is nirvana, and you want to know another type of nirvana, so then non-creation of anything whatsoever, once such things as a form and so on no longer possess substantial intrinsic identity, substantial nature, cause and condition, actions, addictions, if that were to be the cease, like, oh, nirvana is no attachment, nirvana is no birth. So just simply no birth is nirvana, no attachment is nirvana, no cycling is nirvana. Then the space is already nirvana. It's not just, no attachment is nirvana. It's not just no birth is nirvana. So it's nirvana means one who is constantly cycling in the life, cycling in the samsara due to the force of the karma and afflictive emotions. That condition which causing them to be cycling is ended. That should be nirvana. Is a dependent understands. So no attachment, if just no attachment is nirvana, non-existing attachment is nirvana, and your floor, the table, all nirvana. Right. Table is no attachment, stone, the rocks, soil, no attachment. It's not a nirvana. By destroying an intrinsic in the nature's identity of the something, and it could be not something that's same about through the thoroughly understanding the created. To this, Buddhist realist may object, although we accept precisely the nirvana, this nirvana by destructions, we are without fault. But this objection is also incorrect. It is like this: if those who seize the reality necessarily directly experience the cessations. So now questioning is, they say, no birth, no attachment, for example, no anger is not a patient. No anger is no patient because the world has no anger. World has no patience. The person who is angry, no longer angry, he is with condition. He is no longer become the angry person. Is the patient, right? So a person who is constantly, harmful through body and speech. Now, with some conditions, he has stopped to be harmful through the speech and the body, is the patient. Not just simply not angry is patient. So it is like this. If those who see the necessary, they directly experience the cessation from your perspective, without the aggregates having ceased, just such cessations could not be exist. Alternatively, when the aggregates have ceased, since there would be no one there at all. So I think it's the same kind of, same point is just repeated in this another line. Aggregates having ceased. Aggregates means aggregates of the body, aggregates of consciousness, perceptions, emotions, everything is ceased. So if this is the nirvana, and there is, at the end of that, there would be no one there at all to experience the nirvana. How would directly experience that cessations? Since some persons, such as the noble Shariputra, So if nirvana is something, end of existing of yourself, existing of your aggregates, the end of existing of your aggregates, then probably you cannot say Shariputra has attained nirvana. While he was alive, he has to attain nirvana after parinirvana. So noble Shariputra exists at the time of seeing reality as long as there is continuum aggregates. He has the continuum of the aggregates. Nirvana, Shariputra's the body, Shariputra's perceptions, Shariputra's habit of the stain of the afflictive emotions. So all our aggregates is still there, But he has attained that nirvana. Someone may also object that at the time, what would that person be seeing in order to have direct experience?
What I say, it is that all these problems, contradictions, back and forth, it is because we are assuming all the time that there is a subject with intrinsic nature, with an intrinsic I, that it is jumping from samsara to nirvana. So it is, if we have that subject still solid, like so, intrinsic, show up all these contradictions.
Yeah, when we think of body, this is my body.
My body.
So that means, in that notions, you have kind of the grasping, this is the body. Yeah. This is the body. It is intrinsic. Yeah. It is solid by itself. And then, how do you know it is not intrinsic? Then say, is the moisture in the body, is it, it is intrinsic? Is a suffering that caused by moisture in the body, suffering that caused by blood in the body, suffering that's the flesh or the skin or the bone or bone marrow. Bone marrow. So you see, each of those is not a conditioned suffering. Not because of this is you are suffering. Not because of the flesh, not because of skin, not because of the moistures, not because of the air to continue breathing in and out. And then what is the condition, the aggregates you have? You said the aggregates is, appropriated by the karma and afflictive emotions. So the appropriation is, in the imagination, in the conventionally, you kind of try to set up the meaning. There is moistures, this is not the suffering, this is the heat, this is not the suffering, air keeps coming in, this is not a suffering, but all together with consciousness experience, birth, aging, and death. This is why we say, the aggregates. So aggregate is understood in the thought. Aggregates, the meaning of the aggregates kind of exists in the face of that languages and the thought. And beyond that, there is not in my body. Every part of my body, there's no. So then why you construct this? Because, all this, assembling or kind of collectively functioning is, I believe, this is the force of my emotional and previous karma. So it's this whole heat and air is collectively functioning under the force of karma and afflictive emotions. So there's some kind of the forces, the continuous, existing of the air, moistures, the heat, and the space and the consciousness. There's some kind of forces there. But if I pick one, it's not a problem. This is not a problem, this is not a problem. This whole functioning under these conditions, under this force of the habit of emotional, that is the problem. So then it says, what do you call that? That force. That is a conditional suffering. The conditioning suffering is not suffering by nature. So now, is there any way to cut out that condition that causes suffering? Yes. So that is called liberation. Yeah. So when this talk about this liberation, there's nothing we are talking about physically cutting and ending. Right. So, and then says, and why do you really think nirvana is something non-existing, total annihilation? Because the condition, suffering is not really in the substantial. So why do you need to cut out all substantial? Right. So this is that's why I can say, if nirvana is the annihilation, and you don't need the wisdom to understand the reality. Yeah, you do your best to discontinue your existing. You can, maybe you can just sometimes like evaporate your whole body, just kind of, maybe there's some kind of liquid that we just put there and everything disappears, nothing left over. Is that nirvana? So for that, you don't need the wisdom. So then it says, nirvana is, and where you see nirvana, directly how you experience nirvana. By looking at color, you experience nirvana. By eating food, you experience nirvana. No, you experience nirvana in that mind that settles into the emptiness. You will have the real taste of nirvana, sense of freedom. Right. So that is the how you experience, and what condition that you experience nirvana is. Your mind is always, stick to that, the absence of intrinsic existence. Right. And then because of that, when you see the color, when you hear the sound, you find all these like magical illusions. Constantly, you are the inner derivative of the element and in contact with outside. Then your whole systems, your whole systems is going to play this magical illusions. There's sometimes the color to see, the sound to hear, the smell, taste, and textures. It is not because of something already out there that you are experiencing it. I think this is pretty much also the proven, within the physics, So there is no something, to color, sound it there. It's just, your whole systems, the elements. And people may say the brain is translating, constructing, things. But it's not just brain, your whole body. So your whole body, in what condition it is creating, is under the condition of your desire, your force of the karma. So I think this is why we should understand that the suffering is not by nature, it's under the condition we experience the suffering. So under the condition you experience that very conditions, we're trying to find to end that. There is no any physical antidote to end that. How many times you burn yourself and you just keep coming back like wheat. You cut, more it comes. So to totally eliminate, to eradicate existing of their conditions. So then say your mind is the one who is constantly creating. Your mind is a constantly planting the seed of new life. So you have to convince the mind there is no intrinsic reality. Once the mind is so convincing and settled into that absence of intrinsic existence, and there is no space for any kind of attachment or the fixations to planting the seed for the new rebirth. So emotionals could not stand with wisdom. So this is why the Nagarjuna is saying that nirvana is not annihilation, and why nirvana is like a space that is depending on obstructive nature. Nirvana is also depending on samsaric conditions. The end of that condition that cycles, that end is nirvana. So that end is nirvana, means that, when it ends, you find nirvana. You attain nirvana. Sometimes, and there's in Nagarjuna's chapter verse 24. So there's one word. So, someone like, the person who is, for this idea who has the nirvana is the annihilation. It is the, discontinuation of something. This is, although they really find, they really want to know nirvana, they want to attain nirvana, but they don't see their own ignorance. So why they misunderstood the nirvana is annihilation. This is like a person who is riding on a horse. He forgot he's the horse. He has a 5 horse. They keep counting. He's not counting his horse. So the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 was a very strict one. So he was right. So
what it is interesting, Geshe, it is that both nihilistic argumentation, interpretation of the teachings, and the absolutist interpretation of the teachings, they end up with the same situation, with the annihilation of the person who is going to experience nirvana. Because in both cases, it is a total destruction. Because they are assuming the I, the subject, as something intrinsic, that there is not there, or that it is there, but it has to cease in order to attain nirvana. So in both cases, nobody is there to experience.
I think this is why this is all happening within the Buddhist school of thought. So because the Buddha says this is the truth of suffering, this is the origin of suffering. When they read this line, oh, this is the truth of suffering. Which one? But this body is the truth of suffering. Or they think now this is the truly a suffering by nature. So now they have to question themselves. If this is the suffering by nature, why do you need to find the origin of suffering?
It's already there.
What is the purpose of finding the origin of suffering? So the purpose of finding the origin of suffering is, I don't like this suffering, the suffering with this body, because therefore I'm going to find what is the cause, the origin of this. So then I find anger, attachment, so all this, and then I apply the antidote for those entities, not to destroy my body. Right? So why you have this problem, and that cause has to be eliminated or eradicated, not the outcome that you are with this body.
Yeah, it is not the distraction of the I, it is the understanding of the I, the nature of the I.
I think they missed the whole line when the Buddha says, this is the truth of suffering, this is the origin of suffering, This is cessation of suffering. This is the path to meditate. And then again go back to the suffering. Suffering to understand says the origin of suffering to abandon, cessation to actualize, path to meditate. And third line which says there is no suffering to understand. There is no suffering at all. There's no origin of suffering, it's not there. The third lines, and then there's no intrinsicity. I say there is a suffering. Yeah, that's there is suffering. And then there is what is the origin of suffering? Oh, the afflictive emotions, delusions, and ignorance. And then there's how do you really end the suffering? How you abandon the suffering? And then Buddha says not about abandoning the body, right? And how do you abandon the suffering? So then says, this is not, intrinsically suffering. There is no intrinsic suffering. Is to know, to way to overcome the suffering. The understanding suffering as it is the way to overcome the suffering. So, But I think from the language, it gives you the whole, many kind of pictures, many kind of interpretations. Dukkha, so the suffering, original suffering, cessation path, and then says, suffering to understand. I think at that time, they should understand. The way to overcome suffering is, Buddha says, to understand. And to understand the suffering means how this suffering is relatively exist. So if understand the suffering is relatively it exists, like relatively the water like mirage exists. So the relatively existing means it is not intrinsic, it is not independent. So that understanding, the understanding of whole part of the suffering, relatively and not intrinsically, is the way to overcome the suffering. It is the antidote for the origin of suffering. So when from the language is first line, second line, third line, they don't, suffering and understand the suffering, abandon the origin of suffering means, oh, this is the suffering, I have to understand, and then I have to go to the origin of suffering and abandon that. So the purpose of abandoning the origin of suffering, to abandon the suffering. So if you think the suffering is, by nature, it is the body, and which means the way you deal with afflictive emotion is to destroy the body. So the Mahayana teachings many times says, you should treat like body like your, it's like big ship that take you to the shore of the ocean. So therefore, you should, take care of the body like treasure and learning knowledge in this way. So there is no, Buddha has mentioned in Four Noble Truths, to completely abandoning or, discontinuing is the way to attain nirvana. But still people understand, in this, interpret that. So, misunderstanding has no limit. Even the 1,000 Buddha comes, they cannot eliminate all the misunderstanding. Each person has their own misunderstanding. She was hungry.
She's hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. So Chandrakirti kind of set the example. There's actual meaning of the nirvana and what do you call it, metaphor. How you understand the liberations. And then Buddha says, Chandrakirti says, it is like ordinary people see things when they see changes. They also says, oh, that is the cessation. That is the end of that thing. But still they think there's something residue. It is not totally end. So in this way, liberation, should not be understood annihilations. Liberation is also one of the change. And what is the change of that? Is you are under the conditional suffering. That very conditions is no longer with you. Is another change. This is how you attain liberations. So, yeah, the language, the words, they try hard to explain, the way the word has, carries the meaning is by creating another meaning. That's the nature of the word. So there is no one word that you just by listening and you can't understand everything. And word is the way to confuse. Word is the way to get to the meaning. Without the word, you just, expression, facial expression you cannot understand. And when I speak, that each word gives you another imaginations. So you have to find, you have to find the way to chain them in which directions it's going towards. Like when Buddha says the truth of suffering, this is the truth of suffering. You understand, he is referring to my body. Or this is the truth of suffering. So this very flesh, because of this meat, I get, fever. I get cold. Buddha is referring to this body is some kind of suffering. And Buddha says, the origin of suffering is afflictive emotion. Because of the anger and the attachment, I get fever. So the emotionals, so the negative emotionals, the afflictive emotions are the origin of suffering. So before you already understood, when the Buddha says this is the truth of suffering, you already accepted this body is by nature, it is suffering. It is by nature, it is suffering. You don't understood this body, you experience suffering with this body under the conditional. You say this is suffering. So when water boils, under the condition of the fire, it gets hot. It's not by nature, it is hot. So under the conditions of the afflictive emotion in the karma, you experience the suffering of birth, aging, and death with this body. Not just simply having body is the condition for you to experience the birth, aging, and death. It just simply deteriorations of the body is suffering of aging and suffering of death. And then, all the rocks, the mountains, they all have suffering of aging and suffering of death. And the rivers, the oceans, It's just simply deteriorations or disintegration is not a suffering of aging and death. So human, mentally, we interpret the meaning. And then, through that mental construct, and we feel, I'm getting old, I'm getting sick, or I'm going to die, you know. So the suffering is under the condition. With condition you're suffering, not experiencing any suffering without any condition. So then, if this is the way you experience suffering, only under the condition, and what is that condition? Can this be removed? Can they be eradicated? So then Buddha says cessation. The cessation and how you experience the cessation, actualized. See this cessation. Experience the cessation. And then how this is how this is possible in actualizing the cessations and the meditating path to meditate. Right. So I have touched many times this book. So the book experienced the, aging and death. Sorry. So this is why I think so Buddha taught 80,000 volume of the teachings in the different originations. So if there is one single word that can, give you the, convincing the point, and Buddha no need to use the 80,000 teachings, right? Yeah, any questions now? Chanju simjo rinpo je ma je pa na je ju je ba nyamba me ba nyo kone kondo pewa sho tonye tawa rinpo ma je pa na je ju je ba nyamba me ba nyo kone kondo pewa sho pama simjen dan je dedan den ju je me do tam je tato tonga chanju simba kanda su shu be deda ku je molam ju ju kare ra we ku be shi mo su pendan de wa ma do ju jere simba den zin ja su je shabe su de ba do den ju ji.
May the precious body mind that get born arise and grow. May the bone of no decline but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not get born arise and grow. May the bone of no decline but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother essentially beings of all electrons. May all Lord others be empty forever. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful change in tensing death. Remain in this world until samsara.
Thank you very much.